Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we will be reviewing the album Fear of a Blank Planet by Porcupine Tree, and I am joined here by Mary Loves Music. Hello Mary, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And together we will review this album, but of course we'll get to it right after the intro.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
But before we get this video started, I of course want to share with you some of my favorite bits from this album. Mary, you don't get any, you don't have the privileges of getting any. I'm sorry, it's traditions. But yeah, here's some of my favorite bits from this album. So, this is Porcupine Tree's Fear of a Blank Planet, considered by many to be their basically greatest work. So, yeah, when did you get to know this album and what do you think of it?
I actually have a little bit of an interesting story about this one. So I had kind of just got into prog. This is, I don't know how many years ago now, quite a few years ago. And I kept seeing the album cover on like prog lists or prog videos that I was watching, and I was a bit of a fan of Steven Wilson, not a huge fan, but I knew of his work, a few albums. And I kept seeing the album cover everywhere I was looking, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna download that onto my phone and I'll listen to it one day. And then it was one random night, it was in winter and I couldn't sleep, and it was like probably 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So my boyfriend's asleep next to me. So I just put my earphones in and I was just randomly looking. I was like, oh, I think I'm going to listen to Fear of a Blank Planet. So it's like pitch black. I'm in bed, like freezing cold. And I put the album on and listened to it from start to finish while just literally lying there in my bed, like at 4 o'clock in the morning with my earphones in. And I was so unsettled. I was very creeped out. I feel like I was because the album has that dark kind of creepy vibe to it, but I just remember having it had such an impact. It really evoked a very emotional kind of reaction from me, and I'm not sure if that was because it's the middle of the night, which everything is a bit more weird in the middle of the night anyway. So I just remember like having a real sort of reaction to it and being like, this is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And then I had it on repeat for probably the next 6 months.
That's one heck of a story. This is a very nocturnal album. Something about listening to it at night is a whole different thing than listening to it like, you know, on a park bench during the daytime. So interesting. I've had the same experience with it when it comes to like the feeling of it. When it comes to Steven Wilson, of course, being the founding member, the frontman of Porcupine Tree, how acquainted were you with his music before actually getting to know this one?
I'd listened to The Raven That Refused to Sing. I think my dad recommended it to me, and I'd seen that album cover around as well. So I'd listened to The Raven That Refused to Sing, which is quite different from Fear of a Blank Planet. And I think I'd listened to a little bit of To the Bone as well. But I wasn't anywhere near as like acquainted with all of his music as I am now.
So interesting. So you used a very interesting word here, unsettled, which is a very interesting way of phrasing how this album feels like, because I felt like this one was sort of a surprise. First and foremost, not a huge fan of Steven Wilson's work. I kind of appreciate everything that he's doing for the with Porcupine Tree and his solo works, and like for the prog world as a whole. He is probably the most moving person when it comes to the genre after the 2000s. Yet I couldn't quite find myself loving what he did, especially with Porcupine Tree, with Deadwing being, to me, a letdown by all means of imagination. I didn't like that album. Don't watch my review if you haven't already done that. So when I put this one on and I started listening to it, I was really caught in surprise in some sense, because this one really toned things down when in actuality, for all intents and purposes, I thought that this one was going to be one of their heaviest. Don't know why, just kind of had that feeling, but it happened to be very calm, very self-reflective, very heartfelt indeed. And even in the longer compositions like Anesthesize, I think, one of those long songs that you in no circumstances could call an epic, because it really isn't what it is. It's like not going to be as bombastic and, you know, grandiose as possible, but it's very close and personal. And listening to that one, I can listen to that one on repeat, because it has something very, very personal about it, which I wasn't really expecting from this album. Do you need like a certain state of mind to listen to this one? Or is it just like a classic that you just like and you can play whenever?
Not anymore. I think I can play it whenever now, because I know it like the back of my hand. But at first I wanted to listen to it from start to finish every time. And I think it is best listened to in, you know, the order that it was intended. But I could put it on shuffle now and appreciate every song as it is. I think even with Anesthetize, like, even though it's 18 minutes or whatever, it very much feels like a shorter song, because as you said, it's not you kind of supper's ready or close to the edge kind of epic, even though I suppose technically it's still kind of an epic because it's, you know, 18 minutes long, but it very much feels like songs grouped together in one. So I'd say that now I can listen to it on shuffle, but at first, no.
So the opening track of Fear of a Blank Planet, which is definitely the one that kind of caught me by surprise. This is a different change of pace. My personal opinion of this, and this is only my personal opinion, is that a lot of this album didn't sound as pretentious as before. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but I felt like Steven Wilson and Porcupine Tree were basically, you know, rising so quickly to the top that their music kind of lost something on the way, which is really found on here. And to me, it seems like they aren't going full on out, let's call it like cranked up to 11 on here, and they're focusing on the basics of their sound, and it works for them, and that's what I really, really like. So what do you feel about the personal, self-respective, not pompous, not pretentious nature of this album?
I would probably have to agree a little bit there. I think, because you said you listened to Deadwing, I read or heard something with Stephen where the label was very much trying to get them to do more radio accessible kind of songs, and that's where like songs like Shallow from Deadwing came from, that kind of wanting to write something that could be put on the radio. I feel like there's a few eras of Porcupine Tree. You've got when it was just Stephen, the psychedelic Pink Floyd inspired space rock kind of era, and then you've got the middle era, which are albums like Stupid Dream, Lightbulb Sun, maybe In Absentia, but maybe not. And then you've got the later era, so In Absentia, Fear of a Blank Planet, Deadwing, and The Incident. And I think Deadwing and The Incident maybe fall towards the pompous. I couldn't use that word against my angel Stephen, but I definitely know what you mean. I think The Incident is a controversial album because some people think that it's nonsense. Fear of a Blank Planet is the kind of transitional album between that earlier stuff and the later stuff, and I think they've just got it absolutely perfect. Like, the length is perfect, those songs are filler. I think it's the best Porcupine Tree album for a reason. I think they just, everything that they're trying to do, they did in that album.
Looking 50 years from now, or well, it has been some time since this one came out, so looking like 40 years from now, how will this album be remembered? Will it be remembered like, I don't know, Dark Side of the Moon or Close to the Edge?
Oh, that's such a hard question. And I often think about this actually. Will albums that came out in the last 10, 20 years have the same lasting impact as even, you know, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, like things like that? And I honestly don't think so. This is we could literally speak for hours. This is a whole conversation, but I just think a lot of it has to do with the way the music's consumed, how easy it is to make music. People are so flippant about music. People don't want to listen to an album from start to finish anymore. People like to put things on shuffle. There's just TikTok. Like there's so many things I could say. I'm not sure if music today will be as long lasting as, we'll probably still be speaking about the Beatles in 50 years. I don't know if anyone will have the impact, unfortunately.
It's odd to think of this album being like, one of those, oh yeah, this is old people's music. Oh, it's really odd. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but when you phrase it like this might actually be the case. But coming back to nowadays, I'm gonna ask this question. I think it's a straightforward one. Do you have a favorite song from this album, a one that you would come back more than the others?
Way Out of Here is my favorite Porcupine Tree song of all time, and my favorite song from this album for sure. And that's because of the first time I heard it again. I just loved it so much from the first time I heard it, and now every time I listen to it like all the time, and every single time I have an emotional reaction to it. But I'm a very emotional music person, so if someone can get a reaction from me, I will love it forever.
We've had a good conversation so far, so I'm not afraid of saying this, but this would be like my lackluster track from the album. Wow. Oh my God. I'm surprised. I'm actually, well, it isn't really a very well thought decision that I made. I just kind of listened to this album, rated its song, and I was like, okay, this kind of deeps a bit down, but it's fine. Everything else is also good. I really didn't expect this one to be like a favorite.
What's your favorite?
My favorite, I think, would have to be Anastasia. As I said, it's really hard for me to call this one an epic. It might, fall under that definition, but it doesn't feel like any of those, epics of the past. It's a very good one, very, very close and personal one indeed. What are your top Steven Wilson / Porcupine Trees albums? Maybe even more if you like No Man or something like that, but yeah.
I know, man. They're okay. Love You to Bits is okay. I don't mind it. And I don't mind Blackfield, but to me, they're not quite as good. But I think that's just my personal taste. But this is my number one Steven Wilson / Porcupine Tree album. I think probably is the one I've listened to the most. And then in second place is probably Hand Cannot Erase. I think they're quite similar in the way that they've both got a concept, and they're both like similar in length and stuff like that. And they've both got, I would compare the song Ancestral from Hand Cannot Erase probably to Anesthetize in the way that they're kind of constructed with like lots of different things going on at once, very layered, very complex. And then third would probably be The Raven That Refused to Sing. And then To the Bone. I love To the Bone. And I know a lot of people don't like it, but I love it.
So the album cover is an interesting one. I know there's a few versions which have also the name of the band, like Fear of a Blank Planet written on top, and like these white text. I personally am a purist. I don't like it when there's text on a cover. If you can, get rid of it, get rid of it. I've known it basically since I got into prog.
It's famous. It's everywhere. Like you see it all the time.
You do see it all the time. As you said, going on top prog albums of all time, you're almost bound to see it. It's a very interesting cover indeed. I don't know what it means. I don't know, by the way, if this album is in any way conceptual or does it try and convey any message, because to me, I couldn't find any narrative or concept. I just kind of found it to be very personal. I actually really don't know. It just kind of fits, but I have no proper explanation to why I think it fits so well with the music. So
the album is, I think it's loosely based on a novel called Luna Park, which I haven't read, so I can't comment on, but I would still call it a concept album, I think. Steven said that it's based on children that are basically over-medicated, suffering with neurological disorders, bipolar, spending all day on screens, looking at porn, just living empty kind of lives. So I think it's not a really strong concept, but I think it's conveyed well, and I think it's conveyed well by the album cover, which I absolutely love. I'm the same as you. I don't like text on album cover if you can help it. So the one that I like, my vinyl has no text or anything, it's just the album cover. But I think it's really well done. I love the idea of the light from the screens reflecting in this child's eyes. Once you kind of know the story, I think it's quite powerful.
So if you had to rate this album from a 1 to 10, you already know how my metric works. How much would you give this one?
10. No, don't even need to think. It's a masterpiece. There's not one thing that could be changed about this album for me. I think everything that it's trying to do, it's done.
I'd personally give this one currently an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I think it is a very good album. My best surprise so far with Steven Wilson's music for sure. I'm a very odd listener of everything that he does. I love you to bits, which makes no sense. So yeah, this is about it. I think we can wrap this one off. Let's finish this off in a proper way.
I post a lot of videos about progressive rock, a lot of videos about modern prog. I don't just do prog, I do like general music. So if you like that type of thing, I'd like doing a lot of top 10 songs lists. And you can subscribe to my channel at marylovesmusic, or if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's marylovesmusic_. And I hope you do.
Thank you everyone for watching, and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to Mountain Fever by Subterranean Masquerade. Yeah, this is going to be tomorrow's episode. And yeah, now you'll have to excuse me for a moment when I thank my lovely Patreons. So thank you so much to Clay One, Wrist of Kings, and Lindsay Haycox. You guys are definitely the best. If any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.